funny story. I don't believe it.
Do you?
There's too much news coming out of Nebraska anyway. I don't believe it. I'm not buying it. Not at all.
I don't really understand why a bull has to ride in the front seat of the car. I don't really understand that. But modification of automobiles is always fun to talk about on someone else's show. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Braves and Dodgers meet. Joe Montana has a surprise pick for best quarterback ever, and Lionel Messi does not score. But we begin today with college football. Two big-name coaches make their debuts at new schools tonight. Matt Rule takes Nebraska to Minnesota in a Big Ten conference opener, and Trent Dilfer jumps from high school to the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and they host North Carolina A&T. Wilbon, what's the more intriguing debut, Rule or Dilfer?
Tony, nothing against Trent Dilfer, who I actually know and like and will root for. And nothing against Trent Dilfer, who's coming out of this great circumstance where he was going to coach high school just because he wanted to do it. And now he winds up in a different circumstance. And it's kind of a cool story and all that. But I'm sorry, I'm a Big Ten kid. And so Nebraska, which has only been in the Big Ten for probably fewer than 15 years, but Nebraska's in this interesting circumstance, Tony, where they've been just turned into losers. They turned into somebody else for the last 5 or 6 years. They haven't been any good, really, in the last 12. And so now they got Matt Rule, who has won at a pretty high level. Matt Rule seems like a guy who can go in, and if you give him a couple of minutes, he's going to get you turned in the right direction and go in there quickly. And so Nebraska needs that. Nebraska thought it had the right guy a couple of times, including its own former great quarterback who was a complete failure. I hate to say the word, but he was. So now you got Rule in this situation. And I'm intrigued by that. I think that's a national story. I really do.
So this is interesting to me because we're going to concentrate on the same guy, but we're going to take it from a different angle. We have talked on this show a lot in recent years about how awful Nebraska is.
Yeah.
How awful Nebraska is in comparison to when they were great 30 and 40 and even 50 years ago with Bob Devaney and Tom Osborne. We've talked about the fact that Scott Frost was a failure, that I think they have losing records 7 of the last 8 years.
Unbelievable.
And Matt Rule, Matt Rule has turned around Temple, and he has turned around Baylor. But Matt Rule was recently in the NFL where he stunk.
Yeah,
he was awful.
I
believe he was 11-27. So, Mike, I'm suffering from Nebraska and Matt Rule fatigue, which leads me to Dilfer. Dilfer won a Super Bowl when he was quarterback at Baltimore.
He got
out. I thought it was Baltimore. He got out of football and then went into the TV business where he seemed like he knew what he was talking about.
I liked him.
So I was intrigued when he went to a high school in Nashville to become a coach. Then he won 2 state championships in there, and now he's a D1 school.
Yeah.
So I find that sort of intriguing. I think he's got a better chance tonight because he's playing a 1AA school and because Matt Rule's playing Minnesota, which is pretty good.
Yeah, but Rule, Tony, look, if he gets them started off well, the hype, the pressure in Nebraska to win, where they couldn't.
I understand it's huge.
It's enormous. And it's much more than it's going to be on Trent Dilfer because everybody's going to be paying attention starting, today.
1 little minute here.
Okay.
You did not like my cautionary tale yesterday about Johan Santana. But there's a cautionary tale for Trent Dilfer, and you know who I'm talking about. It's Jerry Faust. Jerry Faust was a great high school coach, and he got the job at Notre Dame. That's not UAB, but he got the job there, and it didn't work.
But it's Notre Dame. It's Notre Dame.
I understand.
Man. Let's move to a marquee matchup in baseball. The National League East leading Atlanta Braves take on the National League West leading Los Angeles Dodgers tonight in Game 1 of 4. They have the 2 best records in baseball, these two, and both have been hot. The Braves are 20-8 in August, while the Dodgers are 24-4. Tony, is this series a big deal, little deal, or no deal?
It is at least a little deal. It will be a big deal if the Dodgers sweep the series. They are 4 down to Atlanta now. If they sweep the series, they're dead even, and then there's the availability of home field all the way through the playoffs. Now, this is a tough ask because Atlanta has the best record in baseball. They're 87 and 45. They got the best run differential.
Best team in baseball.
They're plus 235.
Unbelievable.
But for some reason, the Atlanta Braves stink in Dodger Stadium. Since 2018, when they became a really good team and started winning division titles. They're 2-10 in Dodger Stadium in the regular season and 1-3 in Dodger Stadium in playoffs. So that's 3-13. That stinks. Again, it's a tough ask because their pitching is great. And, Dodgers don't have any starting pitching in comparison. And Atlanta, they got, who do they got here? I wrote this stuff down. Oh, they got Strider, who's probably going to win the NL Cy Young. They got Max Fried. They got Bryce Elder, who's 11-4. They got Charlie Martin, who's 14-10. So it's a tough ask. But if they win four, if the Dodgers win four, it's a big deal.
It's no deal. It's no deal.
No deal.
No deal. Here's why. I want it to be a big deal, Tony. Look, when the calendar goes to September for two old codgers like you and me, we get nuts. It's baseball time, baby.
That's right.
Don't tell me about this other stuff. Yeah, it's the U.S. Open. It used to be like the PGA because that when the calendar was different. It was the first week in NFL, and it was pennant race baseball. And now it's not because too many damn teams get to go to the postseason. And so now we're talking 3 wild cards. Tony, it doesn't matter. Wild cards win the whole World Series. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what these teams do because they're all going to be in some big mixing bowl in a few weeks. You can't even call the races dramatic. They're not dramatic because there are too many teams that are alive.
I believe that home field matters. And so I believe that the Braves or the Dodgers, if they have home field, I believe it. That's all I said. I said that it would matter because of that. We move on.
Too many teams.
In an interview with Men's Health, the great Joe Montana said he felt Dan Marino was the best quarterback of all time. Montana drew a distinction between career achievements and natural talents. Montana thinks Marino had the most talent of all. Will Bonner, you with Joe?
No. And Dan Marino, I've spent my whole covering football life watching Dan Marino. First at Pitt, and then with the Miami Dolphins. I was at his last game. No, he's the greatest passer. If you want to break it down that way, I understand what Joe's saying, all right? Dan Marino wasn't the quarterback. Joe Montana was. And it's great of Joe to be that humble. Joe, to be as great as Joe was, when the topic isn't Steve Young, Joe can really be humble. But no. I mean, John Elway did too many things that were better and got teams that had no other all-pros to like 5 Super Bowls. No. And so Joe Montana himself, you know who was in the passing department, Tony, who goes in that category with Dan Marino? I'll give you Dan Marino's 1984 is like the single greatest passing season of all time, given what the rules were then with Marino. Marino got hit. There was none of this Tom Brady turning to the back judge saying, please don't let him hit me, and the guy going, okay. Dan Marino got knocked out. Kurt Warner had seasons like that. Kurt Warner was a great passer and wasn't much the dual threat athlete that we have now playing the position of quarterback. Dan Marino, great passer. Was Dan Marino John Elway or Steve Young even? Or Aaron Rodgers or Joe Montana? No.
Okay. You know what my list is. You know that my list is Montana, Brady, and Unitas, and you can put them in any order you want. I appreciate what Montana is saying about the great talent that Marino had, because like you, I watched that talent every single game that he played. And I will tell you that I think the most talented quarterbacks I've ever seen are Marino and Elway and Joe Namath. And if you force me to, I will put Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes on that list. I will. And I understand the nuance here. But you can't ask me to say that a person who was in one Super Bowl and didn't win it while playing for a really good franchise, Miami, is as good as people that have won piles of championships. I mean, to me, their talent is over here and achievement is over here, and I am going to side with achievement. I understand this, though, about Montana, that he looks at Marino and says, wow, he had a stronger arm than I did. Wow, he had a quicker release than I did. Wow, he could throw it down the field so easily, and it was harder for me. But you know, Mike, there are a lot of ways to win games. And Montana found more ways than Marino. So I can't sit here, as much as I like Marino, I can't say he's wilt. Tony, I can't say it. I won't.
The breakdown of talents, it's a fun discussion. I'm glad that Joe Montana said, it's like when I hear Isaiah Thomas say publicly, Kyrie Irving can do all these things I couldn't do. I'm like, stop. Please stop now. Okay? Because Kyrie Irving may have a better jump shot. He may have a better this and that. But the total of it isn't close to what you did when you got to 3 finals and won 2 titles. Stop it. So Tony, it's a fun discussion. And we're old enough to have seen all these people.
All of it. All of it.
But Tony, and by the way, you didn't mention your boy Randall Cunningham, who has been one of your
big talent.
Been on the Randall
big talent. No,
train.
Not on the list that I.
Not in terms of accomplishment. But Joe Montana, let me end this topic this way. If you had to win a game tonight with your life on the line, your children's lives on the line, Marino, Montana. Brady.
Montana
Brady
because he's younger.
Montana or Brady?
20 years younger.
Huh?
That's why.
See, you don't even want to say it.
Let's take a break.
You don't want to say it because you don't want to get social
Messi
media
doesn't score,
criticism.
and Inter Miami doesn't win. What's the word for that?
I'm taking Montana. Yeah, I said it.
Okay.
And
That's
how
fine.
best to describe more than 92,000 people turning out for a Nebraska volleyball match last night. I'm taking
70
Montana.
years old.
I'm taking Montana.
His legs are made of silt. He can't run anymore.
Pardon the interruption is brought.
Blank for Messi Magic.
My word is halting. He had no goals. He had no assists. His team was tied. Nothing. I think everybody's got to slow their roll on Messi now. I mean, look at soccer. It's not basketball. You're not going to score in every game you go out there. He had 11 goals in 9 games, which is unbelievable. But this other coach, Mike, the other coach didn't even care if he won. All he cared about was stopping Messi. What is the term of art? He parked the bus. He had a sagging defense. I think the MLS has to go to coaches and say, play this guy straight up because he's the goose that lays the golden eggs.
No, you don't have to because, Tony, don't fall prey to doing what every 15-year-old does and just watching the clips, okay? Messi he created magically some chances for himself and others. And he had a couple of really good chances to score goals, and the ball didn't go in the back of the net, as they always say. Messi was great, but it's a hold on, Sparky sort of situation because people want to get carried away like he's going to score every game. And God, he was scoring every game. But while we're saying hold on, Sparky, Tony, he had chances, created chances, had magical chances in that game. So, no, I'm not telling coaches what to do. I'm not going to be less bullish on Messi going forward. I'm going to turn in every time I see those uniforms, those cool but hideous uniforms.
Did you actually watch tape on this? You watched
I watched the games. I watched the games, the actual games.
What's next?
Yes.
Next. Blank that more than 92,000 people attended last night's volleyball event at Nebraska.
It's astounding. This is volleyball, 92,000 people. This is not football. This is not the World Cup. This is volleyball. The biggest crowd before this, Mike, 18,755. So it's like 75,000 more people. This is like if Bob Beamon triple jumped 50 feet, not 29, 2 1/4. Now, I don't know how you get that many people. Whatever. Yeah, long jump. If he triple jumped 50, it would have been a different deal. I don't know how you get that many people. Mike, I know you hate marketing people, but you got to give it up for the marketing people at Nebraska. Because this is astounding.
No, the marketing people have nothing to do with this. This is organic. You're not paying attention. And first of all, that 18,000 you mentioned, that's because that building only held 18,000. And that was Nebraska playing, Tony. And this was a celebration of Nebraska volleyball. A couple of things. My word is instructive. And what's important here is that, and you can anecdotally, you can read pieces about this now, volleyball is pulled even, if not surpassed, basketball when it comes to girls, youth, high school, recreation in America when it comes to participation. And Nebraska leads the way in that. So you might have gotten 50,000 to go see the University of Omaha versus Creighton. All right, this is what they do in Nebraska. They turn out to see volleyball, Tone. And listen, I got enough friends, parents, whose daughters play volleyball, and they talk about the AAU equivalent. I don't even, it may be called the AAU. The equivalent, these tournaments, it's unbelievable the revolution in girls volleyball. It is astounding, but it's the whole thing.
The fact that you
the whole thing.
are an expert in volleyball across the country is not anything I could have ever expected. That's the final word. Let's take one last break. Still to come, a big step in Caroline Wozniacki's comeback at the U.S. Open.
And is Team USA about to face its first challenge at the FIBA World Cup? No. Mike Gleason's going to be happy we talked about Nebraska so much today.
Is volleyball, is it ahead of soccer?
Thursday night at 6 Eastern.
Happy time, people. Happy 23rd birthday, Sauce Gardner. Gardner is the defensive back the Jets took with the 4th overall pick last year out of Cincinnati. Gardner, his given name is Ahmad, was voted Rookie of the Year. He led the NFL in passes defended with 20. He made first-team All-Pro. He made the Pro Bowl. Plus, Gardner helped recruit Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. Gardner and 2 teammates burned the cheesehead that Gardner took after the Jets beat the Packers last October. They did that as an homage to Rodgers. A youth football coach reportedly complimented Gardner's cutback moves by calling him A1 Sauce, Sweet Feet Gardner. And Gardner loved the name Sauce. Well, when I know you hate young defensive backs, you hate Revis Island, you gotta love this kid.
Tony, I love anybody who's gonna burn the cheesehead. I love him. But I don't hate him. I hate the overstatement about defensive backs, because they're all Hall of Fame for like 3 years and then they're out of the league, or they're being traded, or they leave and somebody lets them go. So they're overstated, but I love a kid who'll burn a cheesehead. I love that.
Happy anniversary, David Klingler. On this day 32 years ago, the University of Houston quarterback set a record with six touchdown passes in 1 quarter as Houston bombed Louisiana Tech 73-3. Klingler's college records included throwing 11 touchdown passes in a game against Eastern Washington and passing for 716 yards in 1 game. In 4 seasons at Houston, Klingler passed for 9,430 yards and 91 touchdowns. In 1990 alone, Klingler had 54 touchdown passes. Klingler was the first quarterback taken in the 1992 draft at 6 overall by Cincinnati, but he fizzled in the NFL. 16 touchdowns, 21 interceptions in 33 games. In the 9th round of that 92 draft, quarterback Brad Johnson was picked. He won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay.
Well, Cincinnati had gone, Tony, with 2 really good quarterbacks, including my man Boomer Esiason, who helped them get to the Super Bowl, right? And Klingler wasn't anywhere near that. So, but he threw a lot of touchdowns. Maybe Joe Montana will say he's the greatest passer one day.
A melancholy trails to Gil Brandt. Brandt, who introduced computers to scouting in football and basically invented what is now called analytics, died this morning at age 91. Brandt was there at the beginning of the Dallas Cowboys, along with owner Clint Murkison Jr., general manager Tex Schramm, and coach Tom Landry to form America's team. Brandt is credited with drafting Roger Staubach and Tony Dorsett and picking up Drew Pearson, Cliff Harris, and Everson Walls, among others. Brandt knew everything about everybody at the big schools and the small schools. He helped to create the Combine, and as a result, Brandt is in the Hall of Fame.
Tony, he's the face of the modern GM. He invented it. And he also did something. He went to small schools, yes, but HBCUs. And he went and he found, somebody like Bob Hayes and then Everson Walls, and they